Okay, now, Nick, were you surprised when you saw the terms of Tyrann's contract? And can you go into the details on Tyrann's contract a bit?
Well, we're still kind of waiting to see the actual numbers. The first numbers that come out are usually kind of like a agent advertisement of like, hey, look how good of a deal I got my guy. And then you kind of see the real numbers and see where the outs are and how much money he'll actually get out of it. I still think, the numbers when they come down, it'll probably be something around like a $9.5 million signing bonus. That kind of be my guess. There's $18 million total guaranteed in it. So I'm guessing that he's probably going to be with the Saints for 2 years, and then year 3 is going to probably be a little bit optional, just kind of seeing how similar deals with these type of numbers have played out in the past. Yeah, I mean, I guess I am a little surprised. At first, I was kind of expecting maybe more of a 1-year deal, and then he's back out there on the market. So the fact that they got him on that contract, pretty good deal for him and the Saints. He had done a story with the KC Star shortly after hitting the market, saying that he would have accepted a deal. They gave Justin Reed at $10.5 million a year, so he gets a little more than he was looking for. And I don't think it's an overpay at all, really, for a guy his caliber. I think that's a solid deal for the team. It's one of those contracts that just kind of really feel fair for everybody involved, and it just kind of seems like both sides were kind of honest about the value and the fact that they got him for at least probably 2 years, I think is a big win for the team too.
Hey, Nick, kind of line me up on the field right now, because we kind of know the pieces that they have in that deep in the backfield. You make a couple moves at safety. You draft a corner/safety there in the second round, Alontae Taylor. So kind of line me up on what you think it's going to look like when everybody's healthy and ready to go.
So I think it'll be Marcus May and Honey Badger at the safety spots, and I think they'll kind of go back and forth, which one's free, which one's strong. Both of them got enough range to play deep. I think we'll probably see even more two safety looks from the Saints. They've kind of been veering that way anyhow. Cover four's kind of been their base defense for the last couple of years, and I think just not having Marcus Williams, I think we'll see more of those two safety shells in less of the cover one looks. But, I'm sure they'll still be mixed in, but I just think that ratio is probably going to change a little bit. And then at corner, I think it's going to be Marshawn. I think Paulson Adebo is going to end up winning that other cornerback spot. I could end up being wrong there, but just watching Alontae Taylor, it just seems like there's a little bit of a runway there for him to be ready to play every single down. But maybe they get there. Chris Richard has done an amazing job developing cornerbacks over his tenure in the NFL. So I'm not going to count anybody out before they even get on the field. But if I had to place a bet today, I'd place my bet on Paulson Adebo. And then I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson will be in the slot. But look, there's some flexibility there, too. There could be snaps now where he could drop back and Tyrann's in the slot just to provide a different look. I mean, they got a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things, and I kind of think that's what Dennis Allen's been driving for now for 2 or 3 years. I mean, we've heard him talk about the desire to have positionless players for quite a while in the secondary, and Tyrann's just another guy that can do 2 or 3 things. So I think it's just another step towards that and just creating that disguise, which is kind of really the thing that he likes to have in his secondary.
Nick, are we undervaluing Paulson Adebo? Like, I feel like there was a time where if you had the rookie year that Paulson Adebo had, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not watching as much film as you watch. But I feel like there would have been a time where we would have been really hyping up and celebrating the rookie year that he had. And I don't know why, for whatever reason, we're not does Paulson Adebo get lost in the shuffle bit? What are you expecting from him here in year number 2?
I think he's still going to be good. I think he's still got room for improvement. Being honest about it, I think you could see some of the limitations and the things he didn't do well last year. But I thought he played really good, and I think he's going to continue to get better. He took a year off from playing college football, so
That's right.
I mean, the fact that it took a little bit of time for him to get going in camp and everything, but he shut the door on Bradley Roby. The thing is, though, is that at a position like that, where it is such a premium, a Marshawn Lattimore type, I almost view it like quarterback, where teams should be bringing in guys all the time to create competition and just continually be trying to get better. And if you see a path to do that, and there's a guy there, and the guy you drafted the year before hasn't shut the door on the idea of investing a significant asset into having competition in camp, I'm not going to knock the team for trying to get better at that position. I do wonder if it's the right player, and again, we'll see that. I'm not going to rush to judgment. But yeah, I mean, I think the other thing with cornerback too is that there's guys that can catch a wave, and it's such a small sample size. You're getting thrown at 50 times in a season. And I feel like there's 5 plays every year that can swing a season. And you're either on the right side of those, the wrong side of them, or in the middle. And the guys that end up on the right side of them, those guys are consistently good. And the guys that, end up on the wrong side of them aren't. But sometimes guys that aren't that good end up on the right side. Like Eli Apple can have a good season where he just has those 5 critical plays go his direction. And now all of a sudden people are convinced he's a number 2 cornerback when, he really isn't. Or Ken Crawley in 2017 had a similar season. It's just he got some of those lucky breaks. He wasn't really getting his hands on passes. And then 2018, things kind of leveled back to normal and the sample size grew and you kind of saw what he really was. And there was a need to replace him. So sometimes it can be hard. So if a team's telling you that they see a reason to veer towards maybe backstopping a position, I'm going to default to that because they got a more critical eye on that stuff than I think we do. And if they feel like there's a need for it or a possibility that they could improve on that position, there's probably a reason for it. So, well, I think Adebo played well, and I believe he's going to get better. The team's kind of telling you with their actions that they're kind of like, we'll see how this goes.
Well, Nick, if you go to the offense side of the football and we start placing maybe some of those draft choices and you look at obviously moving up for Olave, you mentioned Penning a little bit yesterday. You do have Hurst, so if Penning's not quite ready, you can go that route. But as far as Olave, like how do you see that side of the ball lining up? Because obviously you have Hardy, who's a guy that can do a lot of things in the slot, run your deep routes, whatever. So where do you see Olave lining up if Michael Thomas is in fact fully healthy?
I think he'll probably be at that Z spot opposite Mike and start from day one. I mean, he's the 11th pick in the draft. He's got to come in and he's got to be kind of like a 1,000-yard receiver right away. They invested 5 picks in him, and I don't really think there's an option for him to be, take his time to get going or anything like that. And he shouldn't. I mean, you watch him. I think his route running is incredible. He's incredibly fast. He gets open. He runs a lot of routes. He's going to do a lot of stuff over the middle. I just don't think that's his type of game. He's more of like a Stephon Diggs type of player. But everything he does well. And the investment they have in him, he needs to be the 2nd or 3rd best receiver coming out of this class to justify what they did. And, I think a lot of the offense kind of rides on him too. Like if he's good, I think the offense is going to be good. If he's, if they got it wrong and it takes them a little while to get going, I don't think the offense is going to be as good as it needs to be to get to where it needs to go. So I think, starting out right away, it's going to be him, Mike. And then, the 3rd receiver spot is the interesting one to me. It could be Callaway in that spot, getting the, as far as who's getting the most snaps. Traquan Smith, I think that's going to be a decent battle, and that's kind of where those guys should be anyhow. They should be competing for 1 and 2. If they're your 3s, you're probably fine. I think there's still room for another guy if they still had interest in Jarvis Landry. Like I think there's a spot for him on the field at the right price, and knocking those guys down, I think would be even better. And then, I think getting Hardy in that spot where he's kind of like the deep ball specialist, and you aren't relying on him to really carry any weight is where you need him to be. So I think things line up a lot better this year on offense, just as far as where these guys are slotted. I still do think they need another running back. I think maybe going and signing like Sony Michel would probably be a really good move for the team. Okay. But kind of putting things together, that receiver room is at least to the point where, as T-Bob said yesterday, has everything he needs to succeed. Sure, there's room for one more guy, but if you can't make it work with Mike Thomas, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, I mean, it's that's a pretty decent trio of players to throw the ball to.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it feels like the Saints have set up Jameis, right? You've had the Eagles set up Jalen Hurts, and then there's another one that I'm blanking on right now off the top of my head. Either way, Nick, last question, and then we'll let you out of here. Thank you so much for coming on second day in a row. You mentioned the Olave investment. I get a bit turned around. When it's all said and done, what did you invest in like getting Olave?
All right. So people like to say it's 2 first-round picks. It's definitely not 2 first-round picks. They moved up and they swapped, and then they definitely gave up. Pull it up real quick so I don't mess this up.
Yeah, I mean it is a complicated web that Loomis and company have weaved with this.
So they used the first that they used to draft him. That's 1 pick. They gave up a second, next year's second, so that's another pick, 2/3 and a 4th. So it's 5 picks. So I mean. It's a lot. It's definitely a lot. It's a position that now costs a ton of money. So sure, you could have traded for somebody probably for a smaller haul of picks, but then you got to give them the 20, 25, $30 million contract. So They circumvented doing that. They get the young player. The fact is if he's good, we're going to mention the 5 picks.
Yeah,
that's what it costs to get him. He's a great player. He's Chris Olave, 1,000-yard perennial receiver. Like, that's fine. If he's Traquan Smith, the 5th pick is going to be put on him every single time. It's like the Marcus Davenport thing. Like, if he had hit the ground running sooner, like, nobody remembers that he cost 2 first-round picks, but because it took a few years, you mention it all the time. So, I mean, it's just really on him on how his narrative goes. I think he has the talent. I think it was the right player. He does everything well. I think he's going to be really, really good. And if he is really, really good, like, who cares if they gave up 2 third-round picks, a 4th, the second, it's a little bit, but who cares? I mean, if he's good, it's what they needed to do to be a good team. And it's going to be up to him for how we talk about him.
Yeah, man. F them picks. I agree.
Real quick, I want to ask Nick about an undrafted free agent rookie, Abram Smith out of Baylor, the running back. I know running back's the position that they're kind of looking at right now. This is someone that has had a really good college career. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. Is this somebody you think has the ability maybe to make the roster? I'm
so glad when you said I'm going to ask you about a UDFA that it was actually one that I've looked into already. I was about to have to lie to you and just say empty words. But no, I think he's really interesting. He used to be a linebacker. He converted to running back. So he kind of plays with that bruising style. They ran a lot of outside zone in the inside zone, which is kind of what the Saints do. So it seems like kind of a natural fit there. His running style is really good too. He's a patient runner. He lets things set up, and that's kind of, what you need to run behind that scheme. So I think that there's a lot of things in his advantage that could give him a good chance of making this team. I think Tony Jones Jr. is kind of in the crosshairs. He's somebody that they would like to try to replace. So yeah, I mean, the UDFA has a solid shot, I think, of making the team if they don't make another move. And even if they do, I mean, there's probably a room for them. But I do think that they're going to have their eye on that veteran market. And again, I think Sony Michel's somebody that you got to, that list starts at. And I think he'd be a very natural type of player to bring in, fill in for Alvin, help Mark early in the season. Not necessarily fill in for Alvin because they're different types of players, but just with those overall numbers, I think he's somebody that could help out early in the season. And then, just down the stretch. And I don't know how much this matters, but he's been on some successful teams too. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings. I mean, there's just a lot of things to like about him on a cheaper veteran deal.
Nick Underhill at Nick_Underhill. New Orleans.football site. Go sign up today. Nick, thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. How about this? When somebody asks you about the price for a latte, you say it was a latte, but it's worth it.
I was laughing at the dead after your joke. Not your joke.